Hi, my name is Brian Butler. I'm the Director of Residential Ministries here at Pathway Ministries. Today we're going to be talking about street outreach and the training available for you and the church. Behind me here is our street outreach van. You're going to see that coming. You can see that we have 4 seats available inside the van. We always encourage that only 3 church members come with us out on street outreach. That way we have an open seat in case we need to transport anybody to services that we have provided or around town. When you get to pick up the van, you're going to notice that when you get here, your van is going to have a container full of coffee, a container full of hot water. We'll have a clipboard available with you, for you, so possible routes that you'll be able to take to the encampments, you're not going to have to worry about that. I've typed this out. Take a left, take a right, take a left, take a right. It's pretty easy to follow. There's hygiene kits back here that we hand out. You'll see the cute little bags, and there's hygiene items in there, shampoo, deodorant, toothpaste, toothbrushes, so on and so forth. We also have these little handy dandy information cards that we pass out to our folks with a bus pass available in there. These information cards have not only our information, but the Center for Prevention of Abuse, Suicide Hotline, United Way, Dream Center, Salvation Army, and the non-emergency police, so that those folks know that there's resources available outside of this van. We also have some New Testaments up here that you're going to be handing out, hygiene kits, hand sanitizer, cups, oatmeal cream pies, and all that good stuff, bottled water to hand out for the folks that you're going to meet. All right, so you kind of see what you're going to be into when you get here to the van. Let's go inside and continue our training. So if you're watching this video, then we're very excited that you're here. We're so excited that you are responding to the prompting that God has placed on your heart to reach the unsheltered in our community. This video training is basic. It's going to give you the do's and don'ts of street outreach ministry. But you can talk to your leaders in your church that are showing this video for more relational questions after the video is done. And we've been doing this since October. We've been taking this van out since November. So we've built relationships with the unsheltered in our community. And that's a picture of the van that you're going to be in, delivering coffee, the good news of the gospel, and oatmeal cream pies to these folks that we're visiting. Street outreach is really the church, you and me, reaching the unsheltered and panhandling community with Pathway Ministries. We're providing services to be able to reach the unsheltered, to tell them there are services available in street outreach. So what is street outreach? We've identified street outreach as the need for the church to be involved in building bridges between the street and shelter services available here in the Peoria area. Not just here at Pathway, but through many different agencies set up in the Peoria area that can help these folks. It's also relational. It's about making you real to the people on the street, about showing the love of Jesus, that you care by just being there. We're not enabling, we're not doing any of those types of things, but we are being relational and just letting them know that the people who are in Jesus are real. Also, we believe that this is made up of 3 different functions, and that is the engagement of the relationship with you as the church, the information about services available citywide, and an opportunity to show people that are ready that there's a way out. We're giving people hope while providing hygiene kits, coffee, hot chocolate, bottled water, oatmeal cream pies, donuts, bus passes, these kinds of things, basic life skill things that they're going to need, and building a relationship. We're also getting the opportunity to pray with people, to hand out New Testaments, those types of things as you meet the people out here on the street. We're also breaking down barriers of communication with other agencies that are doing similar things to what we're doing. However, we're different. We're not going out there saying, stay homeless, stay unsheltered. We're going out there to build relationships, to show people there might be a different way if they so choose. So why street outreach? Well, it's God's command. We're to love Him and love other people. We've got a couple scripture verses up here, and they're very near and dear to our hearts, and we believe that is the way that the Lord calls us and commands us to treat our neighbors well, to invite them into the church to preach the gospel. We want these folks to know that they are worthy and valuable and important, not only in God's sight, but in our sight as well. We're building relationships. You'll find out on street outreach that there might be sometimes folks that you meet, they won't even come up to the van, but when you keep showing up, they will eventually come because they've learned to trust you, that you're not there to harm them, but you're there to build a relationship and to help. That's part of that building relational trust. We're offering resources and services to our folks. You'll run across people out there on street outreach that says, I don't have any shoes or I don't have any clothes, and you can direct them to us and other places that might be able to provide those services. You can also give them bus passes to, hey, run down to the mission and get you some clothes. If we get them in the door, they're going to hear the gospel. So we're really excited about that. And ultimately, we're here to share the love and hope of Jesus Christ with those in need. So what's happened already? It's been incredible since October. We've had 10 men come out of encampments that are staying at the residential center downtown right now. We've had 2 women come out of encampments and staying at our women's residential center, and we have 1 lady in our renewal program at our women's residential center. We've given out nearly 500 bus passes, 178 hygiene kits, and we've been able to pray. And that's the most important part. And that's what I really want to get across to you. Giving out bus passes, giving out hygiene kits, that's great. But we never want to pass up an opportunity to say, hey, can I pray for you? Now, there might be some times that people say, nope, I'm good, I don't want your prayer, and we can pray for them anyway, right, when we get back in the van. But you're going to be so surprised at people that say, yes, would you please pray for me? So we want to take the opportunity to pray for people out there on the street. Homelessness right now is defined by the United States government as a person who lacks a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. And if they sleep in a shelter designated for temporary living accommodation in places not designated for human habitation. There's a lot of different causes for homelessness. There's a lot of different causes that people are living out here unsheltered. It might be abuse. One of the worst things that they might have lived a life of neglect, facing a variety of trauma, broken relationships, the lack of affordable housing here in our area and across the country. It might be health issues. It certainly will be some mental health issues involved in that. Loss of jobs, the spiritual poverty that people are inflicted with each and every day, and the lack of material things. Certainly substance abuse plays an issue, and you're going to find that as you go into the encampments. System failures might be a catastrophic event. We had a family just move into an encampment down here off Persimmon Street that they had a house fire, and they've chosen to live in an encampment rather than go to a shelter. And it might also be domestic violence, and you'll run across that in the encampments and people being there as a result of domestic violence. So building these relationships, our neighbors that are experiencing homelessness have and are experiencing trauma. It's traumatic. We only go to the encampments and to the places that people are staying or panhandling during the daytime hours because you don't want to be there at night. We're there to help in the healing process. We're there to show people that there can be restoration of trust, that they can trust us, that we're not there to harm, but we're here to help. That kind of healing and that kind of trust will give you the power through Jesus Christ to impact life change. We've seen it over and over. And it's so important that out on street outreach ministry, that we're consistent, that van is going out when they know it's going to be there. So it's really important for teams throughout the churches that we're working with here, that you're consistent. That if you say that you're going to be there at Wednesday at 2 o'clock, by golly, be there at Wednesday at 2 o'clock. It's so important. That's how we build trust. That's how we build relationships. Speaking of relationships, we here at Peoria, or Pathway Ministries, I was doing good there for a minute. We here at Pathway Ministries, we believe that our brokenness, it lies in those 4 fundamental relationships. That's how we view poverty, is the brokenness in these 4 fundamental relationships. Certainly our brokenness with God. And praise the Lord, we have a Savior, Jesus, that has restored that relationship. But we all are spiritually poor. We have a broken relationship with ourselves. We have a broken relationship with others. And we have a broken relationship with the creation around us. And we look at that as our work. And those are the fundamental relationships that these people are broken in as well that you meet out there. They are no different than you or I. They're just suffering in brokenness in different ways. So we're going to watch a short video here from our dear brothers and sisters at Topeka Rescue Mission have lent to us. It's going to teach us a little bit about trauma, how trauma affects our brain. It's going to help you to understand when you approach somebody, what they're dealing with, how they think about things, and how they process that trauma.
my name is Courtney Barr, and I am the Director of Trauma Education and Development here at the Topeka Rescue Mission.
And my name is Cody Christensen. I am the Trauma Education and Development Assistant.
Thank you for your willingness to partner alongside of us here and volunteer your time to serve those in need. In this video, we're going to give you a brief overview of what trauma-informed care practices that we train and equip our staff with to serve the at-risk individuals that stay here. So we use TBRI here at the Topeka Rescue Mission. TBRI stands for Trust-Based Relational Intervention, and it was co-created by Karen Purvis and Dr. David Cross through the Texas Christian University and the Karen Purvis Institute of Child Development. So there's 3 principles that are within this trauma-informed care practice. There is connecting, empowering, and correcting. This is all designed to help meet the individuals who have really complex needs who have come from hard pasts. So this has been used in a wide array of places, all the way from orphanages and court systems to survivors of sex trafficking, to schools, homes, and clinical practices and beyond. So we're hopeful that the information that we share is going to be helpful to not only serve those that are here at the Topeka Rescue Mission, but those in your own lives as well.
So what is trauma? Trauma is really any one-time or ongoing occurrence that can have adverse effects on an individual's life. It can affect how they perceive the world, how they engage in relationships, how they develop in their brains and in their bodies. And so we're going to dive into what some of those causes for trauma are. First, there's some early childhood causes, such as difficult pregnancy or difficult birth, or even separation at birth, such as adoption or foster care. So a reason that difficult pregnancy and birth can be a risk factor for trauma is because as baby is developing in utero, if mother is having a stressful pregnancy, this could be good stress of moving into a brand new home with her family, or it could be bad stress of living in an unsafe situation. Either way, this stress is going to cause an increase of a hormone called cortisol in our bodies, which can have adverse effects on how we develop. And so as mother is experiencing this stress, it can pass through to the uterus and this baby, and they can develop just as high increases of that cortisol in their body, resulting in adverse effects. There are also some acute causes of trauma, such as one-time events of natural disasters, such as a house fire, a flood, a bad car accident, anything that can cause a spike in stress for an individual, ultimately resulting in an increase of that, again, cortisol hormone in our bodies, leading to trauma later on in life. There is also abuse, which is something that we commonly think about when it comes to trauma, such as physical abuse, emotional, or sexual abuse. All of these things can cause adverse effects later on in life. There is also another form of abuse called neglect, which is less commonly talked about, but can have the most adverse effects in an individual's life moving forward. The reason for this is that with other forms of abuse, such as physical, emotional, and sexual, the person experiencing the abuse knows that they exist because they're receiving attention. For the individual who is suffering from the abuse of neglect, they begin to develop issues of self-worth and self-identity, and even can lead to disassociation and severe mental disorders later on in life. Some additional effects of trauma can be things like homelessness, domestic violence, drug or alcohol addiction, food insecurity, meaning I'm not sure where my next meal is going to come from, and also human trafficking. All of these things are experiences that we commonly see with the individuals that we are serving here at the Topeka Rescue Mission. Something to keep in mind with this list as well is that the person experiencing the trauma is at risk for adverse effects later on in life. And then if they are a mother or a father with children in the home or environment where that abuse is happening, then those children are just as at risk for the effects of trauma due to that increased anxiety, stress, and cortisol levels in their own bodies.
Cody did a great job of telling us what are different risk factors for trauma. And so now I am going to dive in a little bit of what are the effects of trauma. And so in TBRI, there's something called the 5 B's of relational trauma. And so if I've had adverse relationships, those traumatic risk factors have happened in my life, there's going to be changes in my 5 B's. The 5 B's are my brain, body, biology, behaviors, and belief system. So I'm going to discuss just a little bit about each of them. So the first one is our brain. And so the easiest way to think of our brain is to envision a house, and there's a downstairs portion and an upstairs portion of this house that is our brain. And so in the downstairs portion, that is going to be fully developed at birth, and I'm going to be able to breathe, blink, regulate my body temperature, things of that nature. in that downstairs portion of my brain is also something called your amygdala. That is my fear response system. So anytime that I am in fear of my life, whether that is real fear or perceived fear, my body will react from that fear state and go into a fight, flight, or freeze response. And that is also located in that downstairs portion. And then there's the upstairs portion that becomes formed in life through relationships and connection with people. And that upstairs portion is my executive functioning, and that is my ability to think, plan, process, be able to have empathy for others, and regulate my emotions. And so over time, that gets developed as well. But unfortunately, with individuals who have come from at-risk past or adverse experiences, the downstairs portion of their brain will become very overdeveloped because the brain will reorganize itself around that fear that they are living in. And so they're going to operate out of that fight, flight, or freeze response system the majority of the time, and they're gonna have very few connections to that upstairs portion of thinking ahead, planning, processing. And what's something really important to remember with this, if someone is operating out of that downstairs portion of their brain, they do not have access to that upstairs portion. And so later in the video, we'll talk about how can we access that upstairs portion to be able to think, plan, and process. The second B is our body. And so there's changes that are gonna happen with that as well. So our ability to have spatial awareness, kind of knowing where I'm at in space. If you've ever seen someone walking down a hall and kind of dragging their hand along the wall, down the hallway, dragging their hand along the wall, they're just trying to figure out where am I at in space and kind of ground themselves. It can also go into my balance and being able to balance myself, as well as boundaries, knowing what are those healthy, safe boundaries to put in place if I haven't put them in place before. The third B is biology. And so in the late 1990s, Kaiser Permanente and the CDC did a study in Southern California with 17,000 participants. These participants were the age range of 55 to 60 years of age and were a non-at-risk population. So they had their health insurances, they were paying their mortgages, they were quote unquote the normal American family. And from those 17,000 participants, they took this 10 questionnaire study. And so the questions were either, yes, this has happened, this adverse experience happened in my childhood, or no, it didn't. And so from those participants, 64% had at least one adverse experience. And of that 64%, 87% of them had at least two or more. And so looking in the light of non-at-risk populations who are experiencing a low ACE score, what is the ACE score of the individuals that we may be serving here at the Topeka Rescue Mission who do have adverse childhood experiences and have been in a very at-risk population? The fourth B is behaviors. And so trauma can manifest some really peculiar and unwanted and weird behaviors to us. But honestly, for the person who's exhibiting that behavior, it is 100% them expressing their need, and they don't know how to do it in a healthy or safe way. And so we can see things like aggression and violence and manipulation. And again, it's not because they're trying to take advantage of situations, they just don't know how to get their needs met in a healthy way. Karen Purvis would always say that behavior is the language of an unmet need. And so it's our responsibility to not only figure out, okay, what is that need? And then if it's within our power, be able to help meet it. And then the fifth and final B is our belief system. And so when trauma comes in, there's a lot of changes that's going to be happening within my belief system of what I believe about myself. So my self-esteem to my self-efficacy, which is my voice, my ability to voice what are my needs and my feeling like I can voice it to you and express how I'm feeling. And then also my self-worth. There's a lot of changes that will happen with that of, am I worthy of love? Am I worthy of being cared for? If my relationships in my past have never taught me that I'm worthy of anything, it's gonna be really hard for me to accept that I am worthy to be cared for and be of value. But that is a part of our job as followers of Christ to help change that message that has been on repeat in their lives, that you are valuable, you're worth being seen and heard, and we want to give you that healthy, safe relationship that should have always been there from the start. And maybe we get to be the first person to show them the true definition of what relationship should look like through serving them and through our relationship with the Lord.
So now that we have looked at some of the causes of trauma and the effects of it, such as how it's manifested in behavior, We are going to now dive into some of the tools of how to address the behaviors when we see it and how to care for the individual who has come from hard places that is in our care here at the Topeka Rescue Mission. Within TBRI, we have those three main principles of connecting, empowering, and correcting. Connection is the foundational principle of TBRI, meaning that that's the one that we want to use the most, and that's the one that if we truly nail, then we can truly best care for those that are in our care. Within connection, there are two types of strategies. The first is mindfulness, which means being aware of what you as the caregiver may be bringing to the table in any given situation, and also being aware of what the individual you're serving could be bringing to the table. This could be anything from childhood traumas to what kind of mourning they've had. When you're able to be mindful in a situation, then you can give the best care to the individual at hand. The second type of connecting strategy is something called engagement. Within engagement, there are several practical tools that we can use in daily conversations with individuals that we're serving to make sure that they feel seen, heard, and valued. The first strategy within engagement is eye contact. And eye contact is a really amazing tool because it can actually change brain chemistry for an individual. If we remember the adverse effects of somebody who has experienced the abuse of neglect in childhood, of disassociating and not being sure of their worth and their humanity, eye contact can reverse that in some ways. By giving somebody eye contact and offering it in a way that reflects their worth and who they are in Christ, that sparks something in our brains that says, I exist, I'm a person, I'm here in this moment, and somebody is seeing me. So anytime we offer eye contact, we want to make sure that it's kind and it's reflecting that worth, keeping in mind that eye contact could be used as intimidation or fearful tactics in past trauma, and so we want to use this tool mindfully. The second tool of engagement is something called physical touch. And physical touch is also something we need to be mindful of, considering individuals who have come from difficult pasts. Knowing that it could be used as a form of intimidation or harm for the individual, we want to be able to be mindful, especially asking for permission. When we ask an individual permission for anything from a high five to a hug, that teaches them that they have bodily autonomy, which is the ability to say, yes, I'm okay with this touch, or no, I'm not okay with this touch. Whereas in their past, they might have never received that ask. It might have just been given to them in unwanted situations. So we're able to say, it's okay to say no, but I would still love to give you that healthy touch. When we are able to offer it, then that can let the individual know that we care about them and want to connect with them. The third piece of engagement is voice quality. Within voice qualities comes something called tone of voice. So I'm sure at one point or another in your own life, you've either said to somebody else or someone has said to you, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. And this is exactly the phrase we want to keep in mind when we're interacting with individuals from hard pasts. We want to make sure that our tone of voice, just like our eye contact, reflects their preciousness and reflects their self-worth. If I'm not able to offer a kind tone of voice, then I'm going to take a minute until I am able to offer that. By reflecting kindness in how we speak to individuals, that can let them know that not only are they seen and heard, but they're also valued. The fourth piece of engagement is something called behavior matching, which similarly to eye contact can change brain chemistry. Eye contact says, I see you, you exist, you're a person, and behavior matching says, I want to get on your level and I want to do that too. And so, for example, if I'm interacting with an individual here at the Topeka Rescue Mission and they are sitting in a chair, then I'm going to sit in a chair right next to them. If their legs are crossed, then I'm going to cross my legs too. If they are walking down a hallway, maybe I'll go on a walk with them. Just by exhibiting their own body language and reflecting that back to them can be a powerful tool of connection. It does something in our brains that says, I am seen, I'm heard, and I'm in this moment. Now we're going to look at some tools for what to do when we are faced with adverse behaviors or an individual in our care is dysregulated, meaning that they're in that downstairs portion of their brain. So we're going to keep in mind the 3 R's: regulate, relate, and reason. If somebody is in that downstairs portion of their brain or the fight, flight, freeze response, then we automatically can assume that they aren't able to do things like plan ahead, process, have empathy for people, or be able to make high-level decisions. And so our job as the caregiver is to regulate them in that moment. This could look like taking a few deep breaths with them or going on a walk, anything that can calm their heart rate, give them a minute to process before you start talking at a deeper level. Once you have regulated the individual, then you can move on to relating with them. Relating can look like saying, hey, I've been where you've been before, I can see that it's hard, and I'm right here with you. Or if you've not been in that situation before, you can still relate by saying, hey, I've not been there, but I can see that this is really hard for you. Your feelings are valid, and I'm gonna sit with you through this. By relating to the individual, you're able to validate what they're going through so that they know it's not that they're experiencing something out of the norm or that they are all alone in what they're going through. By you relating to them, that can bolster them and help them feel connected. Then lastly, once we have regulated the individual and we have related with them, then we can go into reason. Ideally, this person is regulated so they're able to access those upstairs functions of thinking ahead, planning, processing, and making decisions. Within reason, we're going to be able to offer choices and maybe compromises of how the two of you can move forward together. And throughout this whole process, we want to remain connected.
Again, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. We're hopeful that this information has been helpful to you to not only use with individuals that you may be serving here at the Topeka Rescue Mission, but also just any individual in your life and your personal relationships at home. If any of this information has stirred anything within you and you would like more information, please view Cody and myself as a resource for you. And we would love to help support you in your relationships and life and in your knowledge within trauma-informed care practices. Thank you and God bless you.
So thanks again to our folks at Topeka Rescue Mission for providing that video. If you're anything like me or our staff here at Pathway, you'll want to watch that video again because that's some really good information and it'll really help us understand what's going on, not only with the folks that we serve, but even with ourselves. One of the things that cause a lot of trauma and is a really big problem, big issue in the Peoria area is human trafficking. Here's a quote: wherever there are vulnerable people and communities, there'll always be someone who finds a way to exploit them. You'll come across some human trafficking out here in the encampments. You might notice a young lady that has a chain around her neck. You'll notice folks that you'll engage where the trafficker won't come out of the tent, but will send that person out to get resources. Just keep your eyes aware, build relationships with these folks, real relationships with these folks, so that you can build trust. We've had more than one person say, help me. And we've been able to help them. So praise the Lord for that, and praise the Lord for you being there to be able to help in the human trafficking issue. Now, your safety is one of our biggest priorities here at Pathway Ministries as you go out on that van. We want you to be aware. There might be some unpredictable behaviors that you're going to encounter out there in these encampments. We've talked about mental illness being one of the reasons folks are out in the encampments, and you'll certainly see that. Personally, I haven't run into any dangerous situations, but I'm telling you what, there's always the possibility of somebody with an unpredictable behavior, and you got to know what to do. So when you're taking the van out to a spot, when you're pulling up to an encampment, when you're in the panhandling community, I always encourage our folks to get that van put in a position to where you have easy access to move if you need to move, so that you can get in and go. You never pull into some place facing forward and you have to back up to get out. If you're going to a place like that, then just go ahead and position your van, get it to the place where all you have to do is close the doors, get in, and remove yourself from that situation. When we transport people, if you have the opportunity to transport folks, there's some things we're going to talk about later in the video, but you can call us and we'll come get folks. We want you to be careful in those situations. There's the way that we dress when we're out in street outreach. I would encourage you to wear some type of boot instead of a tennis shoe so that you won't step on glass. There might be sharps or syringes out in the encampments we don't want you to step on or anything like that. Just be real aware of your surroundings. When you approach a camp, these are where people live. And so if you've been out on the van with me or you're going out with the other staff as you're being trained, what we do is we say, hey, this is Pathway Ministries. We're here with some hygiene kits and oatmeal cream pies and coffees. Anybody want to come out? And then we wait and allow them to come out. And we also understand it's just like me at my house. Sometimes I get people to my door, I don't want to answer it. And I'm sure you're the same way. So if they don't come out, hey, you can just pray for those folks right where you're at and then move on to your next location. There's always going to be emergency situations. We're going to talk about that in a little bit later on here in the video. And there's protocols to be able to address those situations as well. So If you have the opportunity and you have 3 people on your van, we encourage no more than 3 people to go out at a time so we can leave 1 seat open in our van. When somebody is riding with you, let's say a gal says, yes, I want to go to the Women's Residential Center. Can you take me there now? You're going to say, absolutely, hop in. But we're going to put them next to the door so that they don't feel enclosed, that they feel like they have a way out. We're going to make sure that we're giving them space as they sit there, because we don't want that enclosed area to make them feel paranoid or you're being closed in. We want to keep our eyes open, where our conversation is going to be the key with that person. We're going to keep it light. You know, how are you doing today? We're so happy that you decided to go to the Women's Residential Center. Just a light conversation. We're not digging into their trauma. We're not asking them, you know, what brought you here, this and that. We'll allow them to talk, but we don't want to probe. We don't want to dig in. We'll leave that for our counselors and case managers at the Women's Residential Center or the Men's Residential Center. So we're only going to transport 1 person at a time. And when we do transport, we're not transporting to Jimmy John's. We're not going to the Dollar General store, but we will transport somebody in need of services somewhere. You might run across somebody who is being trafficked and they want out, and we're going to take them to the Center for Prevention of Abuse. If we get that opportunity, we're going to do that. If more room is needed, all you have to do is contact us. You'll see our numbers later on the slides. You guys will have our numbers on the van, and we'll send a van. So if we have a group that says, hey, we haven't had a shower in 3 days and we need to get a shower, you call us, we'll send a van, we'll pick them up and provide that transportation. Like I said, we're not going to dive into super detailed topics. If you are in a vehicle with multiple neighbors, you stay away from those personal questions and just ask those basic questions like, hey, what do you like to do? What are your plans for the day? Boy, I really like your hair. How'd you get that hair? No comment. So when you're coming up to a camp, if you've never been to a camp before, you're probably going to have a shock and awe of the way that these encampments are set up, of the trash around. I want you to be very aware that you have an entry and exit plan before you leave that vehicle. You're going to announce your arrival, like I said earlier. Hey, this is Pathway Ministries. We're here with coffee and oatmeal cream pies. Does anybody want to come out? Understanding that this is their home, even though it might be next to a railroad tracks, even though it might be next to a business, this is where they live. We say keep your head on a swivel. That's just being aware of your surroundings. You're going to look for signs of mental illness and drug use so that you're not stepping on syringes, that you can notice somebody with really erratic behavior. Keep your eyes up. Always be aware that a lot of our folks in encampments have dogs. So you want to be aware of that. Now, we get folks to bring their dogs up to us all the time, and that's great. But I'm not going to go approach a dog that's over here by the tent barking. Amen? And you shouldn't either. Okay, we're always going to check for weapons. You're going to see that most everyone out there has a weapon of some form. I've had guys come up with machetes sticking out of their belts. Just be aware of that. They're not there to use them on you, but you want to be aware of your surroundings. You want to be watching your step, like I said earlier, for syringes and so on and so forth. One of the things people will do, if they have their tent by themselves, they'll even put fishing line with fishing hooks around the tent. So you want to be very aware that you're not walking into a bunch of fishing hooks, as that's our home security device. It's always good to have a safe word. If you have 2 or 3 people out and you're talking to some different folks, and you're in a situation where a person's in crisis, you might have that safe word that you come up with your team, to be able to alert each other, hey, we got to get this person out of here, or we need to get out of here. Understanding that emergency situations are always different. It's going to look different every time. You might come across somebody who's deathly ill. The mentally ill, there are different resources that we give that you can call about those folks. If you run across a drug overdose, we do have naloxone on our van to be able to administer, or 911. That's the most important thing, 911. We're not going to become involved in those emergency situations if we don't have to be able to. And sometimes you might run across some folks that are scuffling about, having physical altercations. Just don't go in there and try to referee that thing. Let them go. I've never run across that, but I have been into the encampments where the police were called because of a domestic violence situation, and we just let the police come in and take care of that. We're not in the referee business. So we want to be aware that there might be a threat to us or other folks. If you have somebody with suicidal threats, one of our information folks that we contact is ERS, and we can call them on site. There might be a weather-related emergency. So it might be a really stormy day, and these tents are being blown down, and they just want transportation somewhere. You call us, we'll get them there. We want to make sure that there's a safety plan for you. We have a first aid kit and all that stuff in the van. If somebody cuts themselves, becomes injured, or who knows what's going to happen. And I pray it never happens, but if we do walk up on a dead body, then we certainly want to be able to call the appropriate authorities in those cases, and not be shocked if you do. So here's some folks that you can call. You can call myself, that's my cell phone number. You can call Derek at the Rescue Mission and Tricia Stout at our Women's Residential Center. Like I said, 911. We're not there to become involved in altercations. Let's get out of there if something does happen. I haven't encountered it myself, but if you do, the safest thing to do is if you're feeling like you need to leave, then leave. If there's a fire, call the fire department. If it's an emergency medical situation, call EMS and check the contact list available on the van. Once again, here's our safety contact slide. You can call those numbers. Those are also included in our little information cards that we pass out to folks. Communication is really important. Most communication between all of us is nonverbal. So 55% of all human communication is nonverbal. You'll see out on that van, you'll know when somebody's out there in an abusive situation because they're not going to make eye contact. You'll know when somebody's tweaking and erratic on methamphetamine. You'll be able to do that. Just be aware that most of that communication is nonverbal. Always keep your eye level just right with theirs or below theirs. If somebody's sitting down, I always lower myself when I sit and talk to them, get on one knee. I don't enclose people, make sure that there's plenty of escape valve for them. I always open up my shoulders. I don't cross my arms when I'm talking to somebody. I have been guilty of crossing my arms and when it's cold, and I don't want them to feel judgmental, but it's just cold out. Sorry, dude, I'm crossing my arms. Just got to be aware of those things. Our verbal communication, the words that we speak when we're out on the van, I'm telling you folks, it's just relational. Just be you. We're not hitting people over the head with the Bible. It's just building a relationship with them. It's no different than talking to your nephew or your niece or to your coworker or to somebody at church. The worst thing to do is to put on a facade and treat them like they're extraordinary, to treat them as though they need special care. They're just human beings and they need to be talked to like human beings. If you receive short responses from folks, don't probe, don't pry, don't probe. Just accept those short responses. Don't pressure, because they don't know you. After you've been out on the van a while, they're going to get to know you, and believe me, they're going to talk to you about a lot of things. It's going to blow you away. So praise the Lord for that. Now, one thing we want to caution you with, and I really want to caution you strongly about, don't do this on your own. If you've gotten out on the van, do not become comfortable out on the van. Don't think that you're going to go out on your own and do it, handing out gift bags and so on and so forth. If you're doing that, that is outside of Pathway Ministries, Street Outreach Ministry, and you are on your own. So I strongly discourage you from doing that. We always want to have accountability with us. It's not your responsibility to meet the needs of those in the unsheltered community. So you're going to run out there and people are going to say, I need a tarp for my tent. I need a new tent. I need a canister of fuel. That's not what we're doing. We're not saying stay unsheltered. We're saying, hey, we're out here. We're going to provide you with these basic needs. If you need help, here are the people that you can contact with that. There's plenty of agencies taking them things to keep them unsheltered. That's not our job. We want to show them a way out. So you want to just be careful, especially this is why we don't go out at night, because sometimes people can be really unpredictable. People can be really dangerous, especially with the mentally ill. So just use great caution, wisdom, and discernment, and understand that your safety trumps the needs of anybody out there on that street outreach ministry. Understand that this stuff is heavy, man. I can think of several volunteers that we've had out on the van that have said, I didn't even know this was going on. It's tough stuff. It's okay. It's okay to talk about what you see. It's okay to seek counsel with other Christians. Boundaries are so important. One of the ways that our faith is tested is by giving these issues to the Lord, by being relational with the folks, doing what we're doing in outreach ministry, but protecting ourselves as well. So be careful, have proper boundaries, don't get in over your head, and be able to talk about the things that you see. And I caution you in this. When you're out, I had a fella out on the van with me one time that said, oh, well, they've got plenty to drink. You can see that the pile of beer cans over here. That is not what we do. We're not here to judge. We're not here to say that they have this or they have that. We're here to build a relationship with them. So just caution yourself as you build those boundaries within your own heart. Give it to the Lord. That's the most important thing. So once again, we give a huge thank you to Topeka Rescue Mission, their team, for sharing resources with us. Thank you for your time. My information's on the screen right here. You can call me at any time about street outreach. We're so excited that you're here. We're so excited that you can meet your team captains. They can answer relational questions that you might have in regards to meeting people out on the street. I would just give you this. You're just meeting people out on the street. They just want to be in a relationship with you, so they're no different than anyone else. So once you get past the shock and awe of the way they're living, hey, they're just human beings underneath all that. Thanks so much for being here, and God bless you.